Today is March 26, 2007, and this is my first Precision Teaching podcast. My name is Rick Kubina, and I am very happy to be speaking with you. To start things off, I'd like to give a shout out to my daughter Dylan. Dylan is the one who helped me compose that cool music that you heard. And thank you very much, Dylan. I appreciate the help. So, by the way, I should say this podcast is enhanced with pictures. So if you view this through iTunes, I'll occasionally throw up some pictures or maybe some graphics that would be germane to what I'm talking about. But if you don't want to view pictures, that's okay too, because the gist of what I'm going to say can just be listened to through the podcast. So here's a nice fancy picture of me. Again, I have my daughter, who I can thank for helping me. I swear, these kids are so good with computers. It's funny how the younger ages and the more they're involved with technology, just how rapidly they pick this stuff up. So, let's see. Where should I start? Maybe I should start by saying, giving you a little background about myself, and that will help shed light on where I'm going to go with this podcast, some of my personal thoughts and feelings, and also might help you decide if you really want to listen to this guy. So, okay, where should I start off? How did I get interested in precision teaching? And I will give you the short story. This isn't going to be my life story, but I'll give you some detail. So back in the 80s, I was an undergrad in psychology at Youngstown State University. And while I was there, there was a professor. His name was Steve Graff. And one of the classes that I took from him talked about and explained how to use precision teaching. Now, at the time, being a young, hedonistic college student, I decided, this precision teaching could be something that I could use to help me make myself better. So what I did with precision teaching is I applied it to my golf game. Of course, back then, I did a lot of golfing, and I used the precision teaching to help me come up with a decent practice procedure, and I also used it for the graphing of my performance. And when my performance wasn't going the way it should, I made some changes to my practice routine, and lo and behold, I became a better golfer. And with that began my journey of precision teaching. I thought, well, gee, if this can help a sap like me, this probably has a lot of applications for a lot of other things. So, of course, in credit be given to Steve Graff, he certainly showed us through his class a number of the widespread applications of precision teaching, a number of the very positive studies, and a number of positive demonstration programs that showed if you applied precision teaching, this is what you get. These are some positive benefits from it. So I went to a master's program, and of course my undergrad was in psychology, and although it was great that I was becoming a better golfer, when you have a psychology degree, that's really a preparatory degree into something else. So I was interested in precision teaching, and I thought, this is something I really would like to learn more about. So I talked with Steve, and he said, there's this guy at Ohio State, and I think that might be someone you'd like to study under. And that person's name was John Cooper, and John Cooper taught in the special education program at Ohio State. So I went to Ohio State. I was very happy they accepted me, and I studied under John Cooper. And I tell you, talk about a guy lucking out. Having Steve Graff at the undergrad and having John Cooper as a master's advisee, these people rank up there not only in an incredible wealth of knowledge, but they are just really good people. And that makes life so much better. So I went with studied for a year with John Cooper and got a degree in special education. And guess what? When you have a degree in special education, you're going to use that degree to do special education types of things. So I worked as a sort of, I guess I had a hybrid job. I worked as a behavior analyst, and I also got to wear the hat of a special education teacher. So I was very fortunate in that I got to apply applied behavior analysis or behavior analysis, and I also got to do precision teaching. So I really had a great time applying these techniques, and of course these were in helping professions. So I was working with students who had traumatic brain injuries. I worked with students who had a variety of other disorders. Along the way, though, I discovered, boy, as I started talking to other teachers and other people, I was surprised at how few people had actually heard of precision teaching. So I thought, yes, this is my mission in life. I want to go back, get my PhD, and tell as many people about this technology as I can. And not just tell people about this technology, but make contributions, giving back to the progenitor of precision teaching and all of the early pioneers who did precision teaching in the 70s. And I have to tell you, the progenitor, that would be Ogden Lindsley, and the folks in the late 60s, the early 70s, they had done some just amazing things, in my opinion. There are, and if you attend conferences and talk to these folks, they're working in, back then there were institutions, and if you had a disability, you were in an institution. And so some of these people, were in their 30s and their 40s and were toilet trained and had been through many types of programs. And some precision teaching was used to help these people gain independence with those types of skills. I can also think of some other very dramatic instances where you had kids who basically couldn't walk, couldn't ambulate, and along come these precision teachers and just did this incredible work. And then there's so many instances in academics where you have these students who weren't learning or were having difficulty with learning, and then you had these precision teachers. They came in, they applied different strategies to helping the students learn. They monitored that learning. They made decisions based on the graphs that they were viewing. And this process was incredibly powerful. And I think the humanity, when I learned about this, that humanity really was something that I was drawn towards. And I think those people who are in the field in helping professions, or those people that have need of helping professions, or there's someone in their family that wants someone to come in and help them with certain things, such as academics or learning some new type of skill. Precision teaching has so much to offer. There's something else that's striking about precision teaching, something that attracts me, and that is its belief in science. And it's maybe belief is not the right word. Placing precision teaching in science, using science to, or embedding precision teaching in science. I think that's a nice way of saying it. And I am very interested in science. I do a lot of reading in science, and I like to consider myself a scientist. So by using precision teaching, this method that I'll give a definition to soon, I think that it really hits me on a number of levels. So let's move on, and let's talk about what is precision teaching. And I've built it up, and if so, that's good, because precision teaching is something that's valuable, and I think it's worth sharing with a very wide audience. So there are a number of definitions you can find on precision teaching, and I'm going to share with you one that I have found very useful. And this definition comes from Owen White. Owen White is a professor out at the University of Washington. Owen has been doing precision teaching for quite some time, and Owen has produced a number of excellent students, and he has also made some tremendous contributions. Sidebar, this is going to happen quite a bit. Thoughts just come up in my head, and I just need to throw them out there. As part of my podcast series, I'll be interviewing precision teachers, so sometimes I'll spend times talking about certain things that are pertinent to precision teaching, and other times I'm going to spend the whole podcast devoted to interviewing some of these great people in precision teaching. And of course, Owen is a person that I hope to have on in the future. Now, back to the definition. What is precision teaching? In essence, think of precision teaching as a system, this is White's words, for defining instructional targets, monitoring daily performance, and organizing and presenting performance data in a uniform manner to facilitate timely and effective instructional decisions. Now that definition, I can talk about it and explain a little bit. So what makes precision teaching different from other systems that may have those components in it? For example, let's break this down into 3 pieces. The first piece would be defining instructional targets. Precision teaching offers a system that's specific to it for defining instructional targets. For example, there is something that precision teachers call pinpointing. Pinpointing, using actions and objects and defining and stating what is this directly observable behavior. And precision teachers also use something called learning channels. So both pinpointing and learning channels will be topics that I'll get into depth later and talk about what each one of those are and how they're useful. But when you look at defining instructional targets, you'll find that, especially learning channels, that came from precision teachers. And the pinpointing, lots of people talk about the importance of directly observable behavior, but the way precision teachers pinpoint is different from the way other people might talk about just how you should define directly observable behavior. Or that's not correct. Not how you would define it, but how you would go about sharing that information. So defining instructional targets, that's a big piece to precision teaching. Why is this important if you think about defining instructional targets? Well, this system is about identifying behavior. This system is about being very precise in saying, this is a behavior that I'm concerned with. This is a behavior that I'd like to change or that I'd like to monitor. And if we want to measure it, if we want to count it, if we want to record that eventually, we need to make sure we know what the heck it is that we are going to observe, what we're going to record. So defining instructional targets is a very relevant and important piece of precision teaching. Second, another part of that definition, and that is monitoring daily performance. If you were to review a number of the published articles back in the very late 60s, the early 70s, you would find that precision teachers measured, assessed behavior on a daily basis. And this was very different from the way things were done at the time. That formative measure of taking data frequently placed the teachers in a position to make quick, rapid, responsive decisions based on the data that was constantly coming back to them. So if they made a change, they could not only make changes quickly, but if they made a change, then the teachers could look at what are the effects of this change. And if that change didn't work, then they would make another change. And this would continue until the student met their goal, or if the student didn't meet their goal, there were other decisions that the precision teachers would use. Across time, as people have continued to apply precision teaching, monitoring daily performance has still occurs, but it's taken on. It's been done a little differently. For example, you would find in the 70s, if you're, I can think of a couple journals that talked a lot about precision teaching. They were using a minute sample. Now, what's happened is people still monitor for a minute, but sometimes people will monitor behavior at different intervals. And to be fair, I should say that there are some projects that I can think of that were done in the 70s, and this is true today, that don't necessarily use a minute of behavior or a minute sample. Oftentimes that minute sample was associated with some academic types of behavior. So let's say you have a kid doing math facts. It's pretty easy to set something up, take a minute sample of that behavior, and then you're done with it. But if there are some behaviors that go on for, let's say, within the course of an hour, that minute sample is not going to be sufficient. You're going to need to have longer periods of time. So you can still monitor daily performance for a student, and that performance doesn't have to be a minute. That performance could be an hour. That performance could be a waking day. There are some precision teachers that measure their own behavior, and measuring their own behavior, once they wake up till they go to bed, they'll be, they'll have this targeted, pinpointed behavior, and they'll measure that, they'll record that, they'll have interventions to change that. So monitoring performance is a big part of precision teaching. That brings us to the third part of Owen's definition. And Owen talks about organizing and presenting performance data in a uniform manner to facilitate timely and effective instructional decisions. One of the biggest pieces of this is the standard acceleration chart. So precision teachers heavily rely on this very special graphic, the statistical graphic, the standard acceleration chart, to help inform and help analyze and represent that data so that those decisions can be made. And when you look at other definitions of precision teaching, you will find in almost all definitions of precision teaching that piece, that standard acceleration chart, is the tool, that is the vehicle for driving the precision teaching engine. Wait a second, that metaphor didn't work right. But hopefully you get the idea of what I'm saying here. Precision teaching uses the standard acceleration chart, and if you had other elements of what I shared with you, so maybe you had some type of pinpointing, maybe you're doing some type of daily monitoring. If you don't have the standard acceleration chart, you don't have precision teaching. And I'm excited about talking to you more about the standard acceleration chart, because in science, scientists communicate with graphics, with statistical graphics, and it is, and there are some studies that they're fascinating, and in fact, I'm involved in some of these studies where you look at natural science and you could contrast that with the social sciences, and what you see is that natural scientists tend to use these statistical graphics much more than social sciences. And I could get into a whole explanation as to the ramifications of that, but the upside of that message is that in the natural sciences, communicating information, defending claims of knowledge is done with statistical graphics. And in social sciences, using that, presenting that data in that manner isn't necessarily the prime way, the first way that people would do that. And again, you look at precision teachers, and it's all about charted data. In other words, it's about evidence and collecting this, recording this data, making decisions, seeing what effects it has. And the standard acceleration chart, I mean, right now, take my word for it, it is a superior graphic to, let's say, equal interval charts. Equal interval charts are charts that are used most frequently. So if you can visualize a graph that along the horizontal axis, it moves to the right and left with equal intervals, and the vertical axis, that is scaled and moves up and down through equal intervals again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's an equal space in all of those. Well, the standard acceleration chart is a ratio graphic, and it moves vertically through logarithms. And that has some very unique properties when behavior is placed on it. It shows some very interesting. It'll show behavior. It'll show that behavior or that data, whatever it is, differently than if you're using an equal interval graph. So again, that's something that I'll talk about a lot more later. But precision teaching is something that, again, if I'm going to nutshell this, I think Owen, his definition is very good. But if you think about, if someone says to you after listening to this podcast, what is precision teaching? And this is something that Ogden Lindsley once said, which I thought was a very concise definition. He said that precision teaching was monitoring, learning frequency data, and making decisions based on the standard acceleration chart. So I also have a blog I point out too, where I am sharing all of the different definitions that I could find. Well, not all of them, but a number of the different definitions. And Og at length has really fleshed out what is precision teaching. So if you think about, again, as a very bare bones definition, measuring behavior, displaying it on a standard acceleration chart, and making decisions based on that, that's what we're talking about when we refer to precision teaching. And I'm going to also get into, in future podcasts, the evidence for precision teaching. So in this day and age, you have to be an effective consumer of knowledge. There's just too much at stake in regards to your health, in regards to your finances, in regards to education. You have to be an effective consumer of information. So asking me where is the data to support precision teaching is something that I welcome and something that I'll answer in the future. But there certainly is a number of studies that support precision teaching, and there's a website called Acceleration.org, and at Acceleration.org you can find, I think it goes up to maybe 2004, a list of studies that show precision teaching in action and how it's been used and so on. So that brings me to another part of the podcast. So we've talked about what is precision teaching. We'll talk, as I mentioned before, in the future, what is the evidence for precision teaching. But I guess getting towards the end, I'd like to talk to you about what can you use precision teaching for. And this might be something that you can think of, okay, is this something that I want to learn more about? Is this something I want to use? You can use precision teaching with any behavior that you can count. So if that behavior is an academic behavior, you can count it. You can use precision teaching with it. Basic math facts, complex math facts, artistic endeavors, playing the piano, self. There's this piece of precision teaching where people measure inner behaviors. So people look at their own positive thoughts and feelings. Now, I would point out that those countable behaviors are only countable by the person, but there is a literature where precision teachers have used this for what they call inner behaviors. I suppose as I'm thinking about all the number of behaviors that you could use this with, it's limitless. There are just so many behaviors that you might be interested in using precision teaching with. And for myself, I use the research that I conduct. I do a lot of intervention research, so I look at how does precision teaching impact students in the curriculum. So there are parts of precision teaching that I'll study, and I'll see what effects does this have for certain students. One of the groups of students I'm looking at right now are students who have autism, and I'm looking at different ways that precision teaching helps students with autism learn different skills and so on. Well, I think this is bringing us to the end of my first podcast. And in the future, I'm going to expand my podcast to, I'll have different sections. So as I mentioned before, not only will I have interviews, but I'll also have a segment where I answer emails that I receive, and I'll have other pieces that I hope that you will find enjoyable. And please send me an email if there's something that you're interested in me talking about. If you'd like to have a conversation with me, I would love that too. I would be more than happy to have a Q&A session about certain things with precision teaching, because as I mentioned earlier, I'm very committed to precision teaching, and a part of my job as working at Penn State as a professor, associate professor, hopefully I'll make that professor hurdle in a few years, but part of my job is to construct new knowledge, and a part of constructing new knowledge and is doing research. And I'm very interested in doing research. I'm very interested in spreading the word about precision teaching, because this is something that has a database, has a literature that shows it's effective, and I think it falls in line not just with my job, but some of the aspirations that I had when I went into education, and that is sharing with people a technology that is helpful and that is useful. So with that, I would like to thank you for listening to me. This has been a pleasure talking with you, and I look forward to future podcasts. I am only going to get better, hopefully. And with that, I bid you a good day. Thank you very much.